Chapter 5 The Fox and the Ghost King. Digging and Dreaming. We dug down and down, deep under the car park, then along and along, Dad digging. Dad doing most of the digging, if I'm honest, with me scooping out the earth behind us. We dug, we scooped, and dug, and scooped, and the King's voice talked us in towards him all the time, mostly about the wretched horse of his that ran off just before they killed him at the Bowsworth field, and how you should never trust a war horse. They're not brave at all, he said, just big and stupid. And of course he went on and on about how much he loathed and detested and despised William Shakespeare. Dad didn't like to upset him, but he told me quietly, as he was digging, that he had once watched one of those Shakespeare plays, an open-air production in the park, and it wasn't bad at all, he said. A Midsummer's Night Dream, he thought it was called. He wasn't sure he quite understood the story, but there were lots of laughs and a donkey called Bottom, he remembered, and a funny little fellow, a wild creature of the woods called Puck. A bit like a fox he was, said Dad, digging away. Bit like me, bit like you. He kept getting himself into all sorts of trouble, but somehow managed to get himself out of it again. Like I said, like us. It was a tiring night and a long night, but we kept ourselves digging by telling each other what the scores were going to be in every match the Foxes would be playing in their winning season ahead. We lived every game as we imagined it. Who scored the goals? Who made the tackles, the crosses, the perfect passes? Who took the penalties? Spurs none, Leicester City 4. Manchester United 1, Leicester City 3. Southampton 1, Leicester City 6. Chelsea 0, Leicester City 10. The more we won, in our mind's eye. That's Shakespeare's again. He gets everywhere, that man, like the King said. The more goals we scored, the harder we dug. We ate a few worms as we went along, of course, to keep ourselves going. By dawn, we were that close to the King's voice we thought we could almost smell him. They'll find you easy enough now, your kingship, said Dad, and we've got to go home before the city wakes up. The King thanked us quite politely, but Dad was not fooled by politeness. When they find you, your kingship, you just keep your side of the bargain, all right? He told him politely but firmly. I will, said the King. Don't you worry, Mr. Fox. Master Fox, I will. I am a king of my word. So we padded back along the streets, visiting a dustbin here and there on the way home, and came back to our lovely, warm, smelly den under the garden shed, where we told Mum and my little sisters everything that had happened. And Mum was cross with us. We'd stayed out so late, and she'd been worried sick, she said. Also, she thought that digging all night, just because a strange voice from under the ground asked us to, and for a ridiculous promise that would never come true, was a waste of time and just plain silly. And my sisters were cross because Dad had not brought them home any pizza or chips. They were jealous I'd had such an exciting time. They wanted to go to the football as much as me, and it wasn't fair, they said. They do go sometimes, my sisters, but I love them all the same. When I slept that night, I dreamt the impossible dream. The Foxes won the league, and they were holding the cup aloft, and everyone in Leicester and every fox in the whole country was over the moon. Cloud 9. Well, you know what I mean. And do you know, they discovered the grave of Richard III in the car park, followed our tunnel, and found it the very next day. They even said some fox had led them right to it. It was 2 foxes, actually. And after a bit of historical and political puffery, they buried him, with all the pomp and honour and dignity he'd so longed for, in Leicester Cathedral. And do you want to know something else? They buried him with all the pomp and honour and dignity he'd so longed for. William Shakespeare was wrong about that king. In part, at least. King Richard III of England was not as bad as all that, as Shakespeare made him out to be. He was the king of his word. He kept his promise.